Hi everyone, it's Kay from Kay's Creative Home. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be showing you a tutorial for how to make a bow, like a necktie bow or groom's bow for a wedding, and I hope you enjoy it. So I started by just taking some bling ribbon and I'm kind of folding it on both ends and overlapping it in the middle here where I will end up gathering it to make my bow. So I'm just trimming. I did a rough estimate. I didn't measure out anything exactly. I'm sorry, I did in the end measure it out, and it came to 30 inches. So that's how much you'll need of your bling ribbon. And the next thing I'm going to do here is do the same with some Deco Mesh. And this is a really sturdy Deco Mesh. I believe I got this at Michael's. It's the 6-inch one. Michael's or Walmart somewhere. I know it's not the Dollar Tree one because it's too firm. So you need something that's good and strong and firm, that's going to help the bow maintain its shape. So I did the same thing again, folded it and estimated what I would need and cut it, and again it ended up being about 30 inches. So what I'm doing now is gathering it in the middle, because what happened was it's actually 6 inches wide and my bling ribbon is about 5 inches wide, so it's too wide and I don't want it to show. I just want it to be the foundation underneath to make sure the bow stays open. So I'm gathering it in the middle. I took about 1 inch and gathered it. If I do this again, I will be using 1.5 inches to 2 inches, because in the end I still had some issue with it peeking out on the side. So it needs to be actually a little bit narrower. So I'm just working my way down here. It does, it's not going to be seen, so it doesn't need to be perfect. And then I decided to try some glue, and then I was like, nope, because that glue is going to be all over my cutting board. So I actually took a piece of wire and did some old-fashioned sewing. First I went through and in and out, in and out, in and out, and just did, like I said, some old-fashioned stitching to make sure this stayed in place. And I'm going to do this the whole length of this mesh. And then when I get to the ends of my wire, I just kind of fold them back, tuck them under, make sure they stay inside and don't, scratch you. And in the end, this was very beneficial because it was wire and it also helped the middle maintain its shape. So my next step was to fold it in and decide how I was going to get it to stay together and actually gather it there in the center. So I decided to use my wire again. I discovered by doing that center with the wire that it's, I kind of like working with it. So started on one end, made myself put some wire through there, twisted it kind of in a knot per se, so it wouldn't come out, and then I'm just stitching right across the middle from one side to the other. And I'm using my little flat pliers I use often to pull it through when I can't grip it, because this wire is so thin and it's slippery. So anyway, I work my way across there, and then I'm going to twist it on the other end so that it stays together. Then we'll move on to the next step. So I laid my mesh on top of my ribbon and decided how I was going to gather it in the center, because that wire's in there and it's kind of firm. So I actually kind of did a accordion fold back and forth on one side and then accordion fold back and forth on the other side, and say, yeah, that's going to work. And again, I pulled out my wire and I'm showing you here how I actually did that fold. And now I'm going to take that wire and just wrap it around to hold everything in place. So I'm going to give it a few wraps. Then we'll be ready to move on to the next step. So my next step was to gather the center of my ribbon so that my bow tie would have a nice pleat in the front. Let me warn you that if I had this to do over again, I would be very careful. I would measure more and be more accurate, because I'm thinking I'll fold it, and then if it's not right, I'll just unfold it. But this mesh actually kept a seam in a couple places that I'm having problems getting rid of. I had to put some filler underneath to make sure it didn't keep a line in it. So try to be a little accurate about where you want the fold to be. And then I use my wire again to make a few stitches to hold it in place. So I just went straight down the line there from where I have one clamp to the other clamp. And again, just working my way in and out because there are plenty of holes in between these little rhinestone, fake rhinestones. So I stitched right on down there, and again, I ended up stitching more than I should have. And again, I thought no problem, I'll just take it out. But like I said, it kept that fold. So try to be really sure of where you want that fold to be so that you don't do too much stitching. So this is how it's looking with the little pleat in the front, and now I've got to decide how I'm going to wrap this around that mesh and make these two things become one. So I started with the center because again, you want to make sure you get that right since it's front and center. That's what you're going to see when you first look at this bow. So I wrapped the ribbon around the mesh and tried to get an idea, get it even, so it'd be the mesh on the inside would be centered. Excuse me. And then I actually just took a zip tie, went through the ribbon on one side and the ribbon on the other side, and pulled it together, and that's what's holding my center part together there. So I flipped my bow over, and what I decided to do was put a couple zip ties straight through the ribbon and through the mesh on each end, and it's basically just to hold it in place while I'm working because this mesh was sliding back and forth and I couldn't keep it centered, so I needed something to just hold it. So that's all these zip ties are for. They'll come out later on. So the next thing I need to do is bring that ribbon over and bring it toward the center there, and then decide how I'm going to get this to work. So I've wrapped it from the back. I've decided that tucking it under on both sides is going to work, and so I'm actually again going to take a zip tie and catch it on both sides. I'm going to put that zip tie right through there, catch it on both sides, and pull it tight. And now I have to do the same thing on the other side, so I'm going to get that done. I'll be right back. And now that we have the back complete, we can move on to the front again. So now I'm going to take the front and kind of do the same thing on both sides. I'm going to pull it toward the back, and where it meets in the center, I'm going to grab a zip tie, go through one side and kind of through the center of the bow, and then come out on the other side into the ribbon again. And you know, there are plenty of little openings here. Just take your time and feel your way through till it comes out on the other side. And then I'm going to tighten that zip tie, and it's going to hold that ribbon in place. So the next thing I want to do is cover my wreath board with some of the black bling ribbon. And I'm just going to lay it on here and just estimate how much I need. I'm counting so that I have the same number of rows extending on each side. So I'm going to cut 2 strips of this because you can still see the board straight through that first one. If it was summertime, I would have spray painted the board black or put something else underneath, but just to keep moving, I just decided to use 2 rows. And I don't like the edges on these ribbons, so I'm going to just take my rotary cutter and trim them off, and I'll do that on all sides. So the next thing I'm going to do is just lay them on there, get them lined up so that you can't see the board through it, and just add a little bit of glue on each side and get them glued down. And then I'll flip the board over and also glue the ends to the back. So the next thing I want to do is make a little band for the center of my bow tie. So I decided to use the black and the silver. So I'm just gluing one strip on top of the other so it won't be moving around. And then I'm going to place it on the bow. I decided to use 2 zip ties to hold it in place to make it secure. And then the little piece of silver was still loose in the middle, so I added a little touch of glue to hold that down. So I came back and decided to glue down one edge of my board that's going to be used to hold this wreath together, and that is so that when it's hanging, when you're looking at the top, you won't see the gray board, and the bottom I did just leave hanging down. So the last and final step is to secure the bow tie onto the board so it can hang. And so I'm going to just take my wire again and weave it through the back of the bow tie. I've lined it up with where there's a hole on the board. So I'm going to go through the bow tie and through that hole, and then back up through another hole and into the bow tie again into the center. And I'm going to twist it together, secure it, cut the ends, and make sure the end of the wire is flattened down. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. And for some reason I always forget to add my zip tie to hang my wreath. So I'm going to add that at the very end. I still need to do that. And then I'll share some pictures with you of the final results. And thank you for spending this time with me. And I'll be talking with you again real soon with hopefully some more new and creative ideas that will help you with making your wreaths.